Hi, my name is Crystal Hatt, and I am a mentor teacher to 19 kindergarten students in a learning environment which we call Studio. 9 of those 19 students are English language learners at varying levels of acquisition. In the beginning of the year, I had one student who was two students who were in the silent receptive stage. As they progressed now, they are speaking more. I have one that is still using 2 to 3 word utterances. That student does receive special education services for vision and hearing. The learning environment that they work in is set up for personalized learning. They use iPads throughout the day for reading, writing, math, science, social studies, any of the areas that we focus on. They are allowed to work throughout the room. There's no assigned seating. They can work on the floors of the studio. They can work outside the studio. They can work around at tables, just wherever they're comfortable. Kindergarten students are typically working on phonological awareness skills, and many of their reading and speaking and writing errors do come in the form of syntactical errors and some semantics in regards to vocabulary confusion, especially as they're really all learning the English language, whether that's their primary language at home or not. So I have prepared 3 examples for you today, and the first one is a writing example. This student is a spectacular writer. She plans and prepares. Her illustrations are very detailed. She brought to me this wonderful piece about Cinderella and the mean stepsisters and the evil stepmother. And Cinderella is doing some kind of menial task, I think, with a broom. So she comes to me and she holds up her picture and she says, "This sister mean, two sister mean. Cinderella, she no like them." And so in a scenario like that, I would typically just restate the student's words in more correct structure. So I would say something like, "Oh, Cinderella has 2 mean stepsisters and she doesn't like them." And so when the student agrees, then we get down to the business of writing, and she'll tell me what she wants to write, and we start to sound it out and use the letter sounds that she knows. I think though that as this student progresses, I have no concern. She'll just continue to progress. Her peers, other educators around her, using the language structure correctly, and she'll just move right along. The next example that I have provided, it will be in reading, and this is a student who typically does use the 2 to 3 word utterances. Oftentimes he leaves out the determiners. The is in. So let's say he is doing a reading quiz. For every book that he listens to and reads, he has to do a quiz on it. So you have to listen to the quiz question and then choose between multiple choice answers for the comprehension. So because he does have some hearing problems, I often read the questions to him. So a question might say, "Who has the bone?" at the end of the book. This particular book was about a dog who had a bone. And so he would say, "Dog has," instead of "the dog has the bone," which would be the full sentence that I would hope to hear. So what I do typically is I say, he says, "Dog has," and I'll say, "Oh, okay, so the dog has the bone." And then he can say, "Yeah, dog has bone." So he may add another word in there. He's not, repeating the full sentence after me, but he is picking up on another word that I have said, and he's incorporating that into his vocabulary. I think, again, just like with my other student, as he uses the language, hears the language, he continues with speech therapy, I think that he will just progress, just like my other student. I have no worries there. The third example that I have is between two students, one at a very high acquisition level. I feel that he's advanced. He uses academic terminology, and his sentences are clear, and questioning and responding is at a higher level. And he was working with my student who is at that lower level of acquisition and is just using the 2 to 3 word utterances. So in this example, they were working on math. They were building block towers using different three-dimensional shapes to build the towers with. So the first student, who is at a lower level of acquisition, he held up a block and is telling the other boy, block here. And so then the student with the higher acquisition level says, do you want to put it here? And the student at the lower level nods his head and puts it where it needs to be. And they have a back and forth exchange like this through several exchanges. Just those 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 word utterances, and then the higher level of communication back and forth. So their dialogue goes something like, do you want to put it here? The boy nods yes and puts it there. The other student says, okay, now we need 2 big cubes. And so my other student, he digs through the pile and pulls out 2 and just holds them up and says 2. And then the other student at the higher level says, yeah, we need them to go right here. And so my student at a lower level places them where they need to go. Then he digs through the pile of 3D shapes and finds another one that he wants to add to it. And he asks the other boy, go here. And so the other boy, is able to say, yeah, that looks good, and agrees that it's completed. So with these 2 students, I think again it's that peer modeling. The peer modeling, he's gonna get just a high saturation between his peers, his all the educators in his life, not just myself, his speech therapist, everybody involved is going to help him progress to a higher level. I think it'll be a slow road for a student like him, as he is just at the 2 to 3 word utterances so far. But again, the progress will happen, and I think it'll just be a matter of having the peer and educator examples modeled for him. And that's all I have. Thanks for listening. Have a great holiday.